share with you some of my experience. And I'm sure many of you have experienced as much as I, if not more. But still, I'll be happy to share it, especially in these times of corona and health crisis in the world. But you know, in Dary, we get to meet many different opportunities of crisis, if we can call it opportunities. Crisis can come from nature cause and can come from man-made cause. Man-made, God forbid, can be a war or any other things like this. And nature cause is something like earthquake or tsunami or avalanche or whatever there is a possibility in the area that you are situated in. In general, dairy should be prepared. Right, excuse me. I'm a third-generation dairy farmer from Israel. I now manage a dairy of 250 milking cows and 200 heifers and calves in different stages of growth. And stay in this field for, let's say, at least 50 years. So I have some experience. And as you probably know, things are changing rapidly from the ancient days of dairy still today. And the fact that we are now sitting everybody in his own place and we can share and talk is something that in the past we couldn't have done. Now, thanks to this Zoom opportunity, which is new to me, I'm able to see so many of you and speak with you free. And along my speaking, you will be able to ask questions or to have any remarks if you have, and to share with us as well. Now, every dairy, we have here, just a second, okay. Dairy managing in time of emergency, as I said, we have many different emergencies, which are reminded. We have health events and problems, and every dairy must build its own manual of how to do things. In health events or in any other things must be recorded, or electronic recording or manual recording. So it enables the people that works in the dairy to follow instructions and to do things according to the dairy manager assumptions or decisions, so things can be kept on the right path without any crisis. Events that occurred in a dairy are, for example, health events. Things must be recorded because in every dairy we have animals are usually tend to get different events of sickness or other health problems. And these are things that we must record and enable the workers or for ourselves to follow the treatment routine and to do things according to this routine needs. We record health problems such as mastitis or hoof problems or any other things that I'm sure most of you know or met during your profession life in the dairy. But the recording enable us to do things by the book, as we say. I think every dairy needs to have recorded and how to do things in order to manage the dairy properly. Now we have other things that we want to take care is this fertility problems. I wouldn't say problems, but the fertility routine. Cow after calving, go under treatment, and in 70 days after calving, we start the insemination process. If you have electronic means, then you can follow your cows and through this electronic means, and you can pinpoint the exact time of insemination. Everybody have his way to choose the inseminating bull. We have here, we have a matchmaking software so we can match the right bull to the right cow according to the history of the cow, according to the genetic profile of the cow, in order to prevent close relations. And this is genetic deficiency, and we of course want to improve every generation. So these things must be recorded as well. From there, we must go to the milking routine. A milking routine is very important, and this concerning to the way we do things in the dairy. And this, you know, the things of getting good results is doing things by the book. We are not doing special operations. We don't alternate. We do things by the book. And do things by the book is the milking routine. Milking routine means keeping the hygiene, keeping the maintenance of the machinery, and do things on time. If we say that we change the liners every half a year or every quarter of a year, then we must do it exactly on the time. Hygiene, the worker must wear gloves, wear apron, clean their hands before, wash their hands. We want to prepare the cow for milking, and the preparation is very important for the cow to release the milk to the udder, and the ability to get better results and other health if we maintain this milking routine. This means dipping the teeth before. It means milking with the right vacuum level. It means spraying the teats with iodine, and it means having the cow stand for at least 45 minutes in order to prevent mastitis. Machinery maintenance. Apart from the vacuum level that is needed, we need to have to make sure that the machine is clean. We need to have a circular wash after every milking session, and every cow must get a fresh, clean machine for milking. This is very important for the cow and important for the quality of the milk that we supply. You know, people don't tend to realize, but we are working in the most sensitive food industry, and we are the first stage of quality of milk. That what comes out of the dairy is results of our actions and our behavior in the dairy. So this is about milking routine, machinery, and hygiene. And now, water. Cow consume between 200 to 400 liters, depends on the season, on the place, of water every day. We must make sure that the water bowls are clean, and we must make sure that the supply of water is available. Now, if we rely on the general water supply of the state, it's okay if it works okay. But we must make sure that we have storage, emergency storage for water supply that can give us the ability to overcome a crisis or a water shortage for at least 72 hours. That means that we need to have water storage that is linked or connected to the national water supply. And in an event of emergency water cut or water shortage, the cow will have water. And we must locate another water supply that is not connected, such as swimming pools or water reservoirs, if they are available in the area. We'll continue to food. We need to have storage for basic food such as hay and fresh grass as much as available in case of a problem that occurs in somewhere that supplies the food. If we buy the food from another source, we must keep the ability to feed the cows with the two important or basic things for these animals, for this well-being animals, is water and food, of course. And this is something that we must make sure that there is available for 72 hours in case of different crises that we might occur. And crisis can be earthquake, so wells won't be water supply, or the roads will be ruined. It can be a fire if there is a fire such as we've seen in the last summer of Australia. We must be able to supply the cows if outer sources are not available. Cow shed. Part of the important things of maintenance is make sure that the cow sheds and the buildings that are hosting the cows are well maintained. That means checking the foundation. That means checking the roof tiles or the roof cover. In case of earthquake or fire, or in case of tsunami or high wind, to make sure that things are attached and are restrained so they won't fall off or fly and won't injure people or cows. Another thing is power. Well, most of the dairies, other than those that milk by hands, use electricity. In normal days, we use the general grid and we purchase electricity from the grid. But in times of crisis, we must make sure that we have the ability to keep the dairy running. And that means a generator. If you have a manual generator that works with its own engine, then okay, you need to keep diesel supply for the generator. So the diesel supply will be for the generator and for the tractor. And if not, a generator that operated by a tractor that can give you the ability to use the machinery and gives you the ability to cool the milk. Eventually we do produce milk and we want to maintain and to keep the milk in quality so it can be supplied to the people that consume it. Now, another thing of the maintenance, which is very important, is keeping the dairy surrounding clean. In case of fire or things like this that can catch fire, that means that we need to have the dairy surrounding clean. This is, by the way, good for normal days, and you don't have to have any crisis to keep the dairy clean, because this is, as I said, sensitive food plant, so it needs to be clean and to be well maintained. Now, in case of a crisis, things might occur that a cow might die, or either from disease, or from accidents, or from fire, or whatever. And we need to find a way to get rid of the cow corpse and to bury them. For this, you need to locate a place that doesn't have any rocks that you can dig it. You need to have the ability to dig a place. We need to have the ability to put the cows in a place with a plastic cover under it so it won't contaminate the underground water and won't create poisoning for people that use this water. So this is the things that everybody must locate and make sure that there is a place like this nearby. Now, if things happen and the dairy is ruined, but the cows can survive, we need to locate a different place that we can move the cows onto. That means by walking or by trucks. But there need to be an ability or alternative place that we can move the cows over, so we can keep them alive, we can keep them feeding, and of course keep them milked. This is very important. One more thing that is very important is a cooling place for any vaccine that you have, and keep it in a safe place that in times of need, you will be able to use it and to save cows or to help injured cows and to keep them alive and get them better. This is something in the general. I was talking about the building maintenance. This is something that is good for any times, but especially it comes into a realization in times of crisis, such as earthquake or a fire that might occur. In general, these are the highlights of emergencies that might occur in a dairy. But the most important thing is keeping the safety of the workers and creating a manual that is being followed to the letter, because, you know, eventually we want everybody to come out okay. We want the cows to be healthy and okay, and we want the ability to keep on supplying milk the population, because when times of emergency, people relying on the local farmers. You know, this is something I always always bring up with a meeting of with farmers. We are the food security of any nation. Everybody in his own country, and people relying on us. Although there are places that rely on import food or on other sources. But as we can see in this Corona event, in the global Corona event, the trade in the world is going down to almost zero. And what the farmers can supply will be what the people will consume. And so this is a great responsibility that lies upon our shoulders to keep ourselves ready and to keep our ability to do the things in the best manner that can give the population the reason to rely on us and to make sure that what we do is the best to help the population. If so far anybody have a question or want to give any remarks, then please, Oded, I will be happy for people to join or to ask questions or to add things of their own. Oded?
Yes, I'm reading the chat of, for example, of Ganesh Raut. There is a question if there is any training available in cow breeding, new technology like IVF. I'm interested for training of breeding like IVF. So maybe the training in IVF is not available through Mashav, but maybe you can speak a little bit about IVF.
Well, that's what we do. We do IVF in our dairies, at least in Israel. We don't use bulls for insemination. I think IVF is very important. First of all, for the diversity of genes that we want to have in the dairy, and second, for cow health. You know, but because when you're using a bull in your dairy, first of all, it's the genetic is not diverted. Second, it's dangerous because a bull is a big animal and people are walking around. This is danger. And another thing is transferring diseases from cow to cow by the bull. This is something we want to prevent. So IVF is very important, and I'm sure that if needed, Mashav can get the connections and help people get the answers for this. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Arnon. I would like to tell everybody that first, you are welcome to put your question in the chat. And if you don't want to write it down, your question, then you can also raise a hand through the Zoom. I'm looking now my way how to do it, but I'm sure
We are all new in Zoom.
all new in Zoom. If you raise your hand, we'll try to give you the mic, and you will be able to put your personal question and to receive a special answer. Maybe Louise or Esther or Cheskel Gogo, maybe you have some questions in order to make it more interesting, because if you do communicate with us, then Arnon could calibrate his answer directly to your needs, and they won't be doing a general presentation, let's say, according to the Israeli experience. מישהו מבין? לא רואה. Okay, let's... Okay. I will be reading a few of the questions that I'm seeing here. I will send the presentation by email, not the presentation, but the recording of this presentation. So you'll have this recorded presentation. Then there is a question: when you will be holding on-site basic dairy training in Mashal? So we don't really know. Just a minute, I'll read Esther's question. How do you ensure that an airborne disease doesn't infect the cows in the farm, given that they are all stuck up in one place?
Well, I can tell you for this question, in Israel, the dairy sector is very organized, and we have 2 layers of shield on the dairy. We have the local vet that have a compulsory visit every week in the dairy, and we have a national shield that is compulsory. It's not something that I can say I don't want, of vaccination against exotic diseases that might attack the herd. Plus, we make sure there are no flies in the dairy. We have a treatment against flies before they hatch from the larva. And of course, fighting weekly against pigeons and doves that usually consume food from the cows, the concentrated food. So the dairy is usually clean and without flies, and is vaccinated against diseases that we think are dangerous for human and for cows.
There is another question of Danilo Fausto, and he is asking what is exactly the IVF, and he has a specific question also. What is the percentage of success of breeding using the IVF?
Okay, IVF is artificial insemination. The rate of success in my dairy in first round is around 60%, and we get for small percentage the cows that go to 3rd and 4th inseminations. It depends on the cow and on the cow status in the herd. If it's an old cow and low milk production, then I'm begging their pardon and we separate. They go their way and I'll stay in the farm. But usually it's 60% success in first insemination, because what we use here is electronic means to identify the heat time. And by using this electronic means, we can pinpoint the exact time when to inseminate. We can see by the graph of the peak, when the peak of the ovulation is. And we know that the best time to inseminate a cow is 16 hours after ovulation. And so we can pinpoint the exact time when to inseminate the cow. It's very important to be pinpoint on this, because eventually it's, you know, you're missing 21 more days if you don't succeed. Yes.
Another, there is a question of Esther that is asking, just a minute, there is a lot of questions and the question is running away. How do you ensure that the airborne, no, this I asked already. What is IVF? We asked already. Just a minute. And we have a lot of thanks. And there is another question of Titus is asking, how can farmers maintain their market for milk in time of emergencies like we have now?
Well, a dairy farm is not a standalone operation. I can tell you from the way we do it here, a dairy farm is one part of the chain. Of course, we have the field that grow the crop, we have the dairy that produce the milk, and we have the processing plants. The milk is going to the processing plants. We ship the milk every day we cool it to 3 Celsius degrees, and we ship it every day to the processing plant. It goes into the silos of the processing plant just after it passed 5 essential checks of the quality. First of all, antibiotics, water, acidity, color, and smell. Once it passes these checks, it goes into the processing plant silos. In case of emergency, that let's say earthquake or something like this, that the roads are blocked and you can't ship the milk, then there is no way you can use the milk for people. And if there is a real emergency, you can use the milk for give it to the calves and give it to even to the cows to drink. But this is really a severe emergency. But the dairy itself need to be connected to the processing plant. And you must remember, we're talking about public health. Milk is very sensitive food beverage, and must be treated very carefully and kept under the right conditions.
So there is another question. There is any recycling system in your specific farm in Arnon?
Yes, of course. First of all, the water of the circular cleaning of the machine, we collect them and we clean all the cement standing of the cows with this water. So this is a second use. And all the manure from the alleys, we scrape to a pit and we pump it to a biogas plant. Actually, the dairy in Israel, in my case, produce 3 products. First of all, of course, is milk. Second is meat. And third is electricity. We have all the rooftops are covered with photovoltaic panels, and we sell electricity to the grid. So this is a very important part of the income from the dairy. But this is, of course, depends on every country, the possibilities that they have.
Okay. What about biogas?
I'm saying, we scrape all the manure from the alleys to a pit and we pump it to a biogas plant. So we produce electricity from biogas as well.
Okay. There is a question here on the success rate of
Insemination.
Sorted semen.
Well, We don't do sorted semen here. I don't think it's worth the price that need to be paid for sorted semen, and we go by the nature. Whatever comes out is okay.
Okay, and there is a question of Kennedy, our owner. Do you have a basic plan for dairy structure that those that wants to start can consider building?
Well, there is a way to, I'm sure that you that can do it, there is a way to connect to planners that plan dairy farms. And you can get plans, and you can get from step one to key. If there are companies that are doing it, there are several companies in Israel that are doing it. One thing, though, I must say, is that you must understand exactly and determine exactly what you want to do, and you must set the price before you start even thinking about it. And because eventually this is an economic venture. And if you want to build a dairy, then you need to calculate and to understand what are you getting into, and what the size of herd you want to build the dairy for, and so on. And for this, I think it's a good thing to get a consultant that can learn your needs and can help you asking the right questions, so you can have your dairy built in the best manner that there is.
There is a question of Dr. Sharanaguda that asking what method do you use to detect subclinical mastitis in your farms?
Well, first of all, we have on our milk meters, we have a conductivity detection that gives us the conductivity of milk. And we know that any change in milk conductivity is a sign of mastitis. So we can detect mastitis before it becomes an acoustic problem. Another thing we use is a CMT tray. I don't know if all of you know what CMT is, but CMT is a kind of red liquid that we put into a 4 cups tray, and we take a sample of milk and we mix it together. And if it becomes a kind of jelly, that means that there is a mastitis in this quarter of the udder. And so we prevent milking this quarter into the bulk tank in order to maintain the quality of milk that we ship, because we are making our livelihood from the quality of the milk.
There is a question of Al Gonzaga asking how big the land needed to raise at least 100 head of milking cows. The kind of weather, of weather to raise them. Do you assist or help government establish in a kibbutz-like setup in other countries? So please, one question by
one question at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. First of all, to the area for building dairy, the dairy itself don't need, every cow, if we calculate it by square meter, a cow need at least 25 square meters in a shade. From this, you can understand how large the shade must be in order to accommodate the cows that you possess. The milking power itself, again, it's a question of the size of your herd and how fast you want to have the milking take place, because time is very essential, and the faster we get, the better it is. So it depends on how large the herd is. Apart from this, you need a land for growing the crop for the dairy. And I think this is something that is given. Everybody have his own area that grow crops, or somebody that supplies crops. Here in Israel, we work in different manner of food supply. We have we have a phenomenon that's called feeding center, that farmers from the same village gathering their lands together and hiring a contractor that grow the crops. And actually, we don't interfere in the crop growing. And we say we specialize in every corner of the work. We specialize in dairy managing. The contractor specializes in crop growing. The feeding center is having the mixer wagons that mix the food. We have a nutritionist that determine the meal that the cow consume. We feed the cow once every day. Cow consume at least 45 to 50 kilo of dry matter of mixed food. We use supplements or leftovers from the human food industry as additives for the cow feeding. But this is, it varies from country to country what the abilities are for cow feeding, because the quality and the quantity of the milk, apart from the genetic of the cow, is determined by the quality of the food that the cow consumes, of course. And of course, there is an economy question here. How much will you pay for the cow food? Because here in Israel, at least 60% of the cost in dairy managing is cow feeding. So this is something to be very accurate in the feeding sector.
So Gonzaga asked another question: whether there is the kind of the weather to raise cows? There is different weather, so
I can tell you that
weather.
I can tell you that the cooler, the better. A cow is a fur animal. A cow doesn't have any sweating mechanism. A cow, in order to cool itself, urinate and drink water. We live in Israel here. We live on the coast of Israel, which is very, very humid and very hot. And so we give a cow every day at least 9 hours of intensive cooling. That means water spraying on the cows and fans that evaporates the water. So we help the cow cool themselves. And even in this harsh climate, we can produce, now we have an average of 40 liters per cow per day, but it takes an investment on cooling a cow. If you can find a place where the weather is cool, then it's better, of course. Give the cow 3 Celsius degrees without wind, and the cow is a queen.
Okay. Next question is of Mr. or Miss Daka, and he's asking, what are the criteria for cow selection?
Well, when we choose a bull to inseminate a cow, we look at a few features. First of all, we look at the udder structure. We want the udder to be small and even, and the teats to be relatively large, but not too large and not too small. Then we look at the body structure. We want the legs to be strong. We want the back to be straight. And of course, we need the history of the parents recording in order to know the quantity of expected quantity of fat and protein in the cow's milk. These are the features that we are looking at in order to get the best results. And we try to improve every generation on its predecessor by using the genetic means of sorting, and of course by feeding. The best way that we can support a cow by food that can give the best results. So there are two things, the genetics and feedings.
Okay. And the selection, maybe criteria for selection the cow means how do you take out a cow from your herd? What are your criteria of selling a cow?
Okay. The cow must justify its staying in the farm. A cow must be pregnant, must get into pregnancy by the 3rd time. This is the limit. 4th time if it's a special cow. A cow will justify its staying in the farm by the milk quantity and the fat and protein quantity. If a cow go below in my case, 23 liters, and low fat and low protein, that the cow won't be kept in the herd. If a cow doesn't get pregnant in 3 or 4 attempts, then the cow will leave the herd. Other in special events, if the cow is really high on protein and fat and high on milk production. But if the cow won't get pregnant in the 4th attempt, then we'll keep the cow, but we'll stop inseminating the cow. We'll just keep it for as long as the cow produces milk. And of course, if there is a cow that causing problems for the inseminator or for the farmers, like a cow that doesn't get adjust to milking, then of course we can't keep the cow because of crew safety.
There is a question of Ezekiel Gogo, interesting one on hygiene. And he is writing, will there is any problem with the milk if you alternate from machine and hand milking?
Hand milking is for very small dairies, and it's not as hygiene as machine milking. But for everybody, there are portable machines, portable machines that you can purchase for not expensive, too much expensive price, that can be used in events like crisis in a dairy. And I think it's good to have a portable machine in every dairy, even for events like mastitis, so that the cow can't go into the milking parlor, that you can milk the cow outside. So portable machine is an ability, and milking by hands is limited, first of all, for the quantity of milk that the cow produces. And of course, there is a problem with the quality of the milk, because using hands, if the udder is not sterilized, then I don't think that you can get the best quality of milk in this event.
Thank you, Arnon. There is a question of Yen Deng that is asking, how can you provide feed in large dairy farm during crisis time like now, especially when there is more labor for the safety of the virus?
What we do here is we prepare, because we have this feeding center, we prepare the feeding center. We have silage pits and hay storage that can give us through from harvesting season to harvesting season for almost a year. So we don't have any problem with this. But for small private dairies, you need to have a shade that you can keep bales of hay in there, or mixed food in there, for the length of at least 72 hours before you can restore, or even more if you have the place to install feeding materials.
So there is another question about temperature. Ezekiel asking again, does the temperature affect milk production? So this is obvious for us, but maybe not for everybody.
Well, it affects, of course it affects. Cow body temperature is rising up if the external temperature is high. Cow drinks a lot of water and urinate a lot in order to cool itself, but still, we must remember that the cow is a cool area animal with a fur and doesn't have any sweating mechanism. So it affects, if a cow won't be chilled, then the milk production will get very low. And we are very keen about cow comfort, and we must, everybody to his abilities. We must give the cow the ability to cool itself, if by fans or if by water and evaporating water like we do here. Again, everybody must do the things in his ability and in his facilities to the best well-being of the cow, because all of us are making a living from the cow, and the cow must get the best accommodations that we can give.
I see that there is a man here called Galaxy A50
Oh.
So, what are the best control practices for pest control for cows, in cows?
For pest control?
Yeah, pest control.
Well, before the season, before summer starts, even here in Israel, we do it in early March. We spray all the manure areas against larvae of flies. We have sheets of sticking glue with yellow cover that flies are being attached to. And we spray the buildings with the material that when fly touch it, it dies. We do the things before it become before we become infested with flies. This is very important for the milkers and for the cows, of course.
I see that William Ontiego maybe would like to ask. He wrote me down. Ora, could you open the microphone of Mr. Ontiego? Yeah, and he could ask in his words the question. I wouldn't make.
Please, William.
Please.
Hello. I'm asking like on average, how much does it cost to start like a medium, well-equipped modern dairy farm?
Could you please repeat the question? I didn't quite understand.
How much does it cost to set up a medium, well-equipped dairy farm?
That's a good question. Okay, the variation is so big. We will pay one price in Israel, and you will pay a different price in Kenya, and we'll pay another price in India. It's a question that I can't answer because you must know the price of commodities in your country, and before you start building a dairy, you must create a business plan that will give you the exact map of how much and what will be the price of building a dairy according to the how large your herd is.
Okay, so there is another question of Lionel Corrado. He's asking, how do you correct the hygiene problem on the milking machines?
Well, we don't correct. We do it regularly. After every milking session, we're going to do a circular washing. We have, of course, it's electronic commanded. We use 80 Celsius degree water, and we use detergents. We wash the machine circular wash, and so the machine is always clean for the next session. This is very important because if you don't use hot water and detergents, you will get cream inside your liners, and of course this is a bacteria count and mastitis and so on. This is very important. And of course, one more thing is the milkers must use gloves, must wash their hands, must use an apron, and the dairy itself must be cleaned after every session. No manure on the floors, wash the floors, no manure on the walls. This is a place that people are working and must be in a good shape.
Another question here, how do you get concentrate for the farm? I believe concentrate means...
How to get?
A concentrate, teats. Just a minute. Just a minute.
How to get what?
Just a minute. He wrote concentrates or feed. He wants to say tarovet for your farm. You get them or you buy them?
Concentrated food. How you get concentrated food?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that here we are connected with, we have our own farmers. We have our own feeding center that creates the concentrated food. We purchase grains and flour and other things that are being used as part of the concentrated food, and we mix it here. And that's the way we get our concentrated food. In other places or countries, I think there are plants that can produce this concentrated food, or you can purchase the different ingredients and mix it yourself. This is connecting to the local merchants that can supply these ingredients. But in any case, it's best to use a nutritionist, a dairy nutritionist that can assemble the meal according to the cow needs. By the way, every mix that we have for our dairy, the meal itself with silage and hay and concentrated is being checked daily in a lab. So we know exactly what the ingredients are and what the quality is. And if there is a poisoning from the food, we know exactly where it came from and when it happened. This is very important. And this is another thing that is very good to record and to maintain in your dairy.
Okay, there is a question from Elisha from Uganda that he's understanding that cows need cooling environment and water to cool themselves. So let's say it is raining and they don't have shades. Are there some diseases which come by prolonged rainfall? Whether because they are very humid, maybe they get some disease.
Yes, yes. They can have leeches that attach themselves to the cow skin. They can have a lot of hoof problems because of the continuous moist that the cow are walking in. And it's best to give the cow shade so they can be dry and keep themselves cool in a dry place. I think it's very important to give the cows these facilities because, you know, the better the cow is, the better the quality of the milk is.
So Mr. or Miss Leonel Corrado is asking another question. How do you minimize microbiological counts on raw milk beside the regular hygiene procedure?
Well, what we do here, because we have these shades, we cultivate the bedding material twice every day. So there is oxygen go into deep layers and it's compostized. So first of all, it's preventative activities. Make sure that the bedding area is dry. Make sure that the milking routine is well maintained. Make sure that the cow is standing at least 45 minutes after milking, because as you know, the cow sphincter, it takes it 45 minutes to shut after being milked. These are things that are very important. Adding to this, spraying the teats with iodine, so it prevents bacteria going into the cow teat.
Yeah, there is another answer to, I will continue your answer, because when he's speaking about microbiological counts on raw milk, then you should clean every day your container. The container that are receiving the milk should be completely clean and washed every day. So if you are doing it once a week and you have a highest microbiological counts, then maybe you should clean it every day, and this will improve your counts.
As much as you clean your with circular washing the milking machine, the bulk tank must be washed as well with hot water and detergents. And I suggest manual inside looking to see that this is really so.
Okay, I see that Bonita is asking a question. Are ticks also controlled like flies? So
Are what?
ticks.
שזה מה?
זה סוג של חרק. Ticks.
Well, you know, the spraying, the materials that we use are against a big variety of insects. And I think it covers most of them. Just looking by the results, we don't suffer from any ticks or flies or other things like this.
Ticks זה קרציות.
כן, כן, הבנתי.
Okay. Okay, another question, one of the last question. By the beginning of the enterprise, the income might not cover the investment and the production cost. How long is such a situation? Just a minute.
Well, again, this is a big variant question. It changes from country to country, depends on the money you invested, depends on what the rate of interest you took from the bank. But anyway, before you go into such a economic venture, this is a must. You must do a business plan according to the data that you have. Data such as how much things cost, how much the planning cost, how much the machinery cost, what about the herd itself, what's the rate of interest, and all these things must come into the business plan that you assemble before you even start doing anything about dairy. And I think there are companies that consult you about this and can give you a good escort for this venture if you want to start a dairy farm.
There is a question of Dave that is asking, what are you doing with the male cows?
Well, here there are people that specialize in male growing, so they buy the males after 3 days when they are 3 days old. My business is a dairy farm, milking dairy farm. We produce milk. This is our focus. This is what we do. So we don't grow the males.
There is an interesting question of TechnoSpark 3 from Kenya. In terms of minerals, how do Israel normally do? Because in my country, in Kenya, we experience a lot of mineral deficiencies due to lack of minerals like copper and iron.
This is the exact reason why we work with a nutritionist and a lab that can give us the exact need of a cow that produces milk in the quantities that we expect the cow to give. We want the meal to support the cow body, and we want the feeding to enable the cow to produce the milk, the amount of milk that we want. And so we use a nutritionist and we buy the supplements that are needed to create the balanced meal that we expect the cow to get.
Yes, thank you. There is another question. Do you recommend washing the udder before milking?
No. The less water on the udder, the better it is. Water is an agent for bacteria. We don't want to use water. We want the cow to come with a clean udder. And this is what exactly what I was talking about before, about cultivating the bedding area. So cow have a clean and dry bedding material to lie on. We don't use water to wash the udder. The cow come usually clean. And if there is a little dry matter, then we usually, before milking, we dip the teats with chlorine. We wipe it with a paper towel, and that's it. And we sample the milk, of course. After the milking session is done, we spray with iodine, and that's it. That's what we do. The cow are clean. Cow should be clean. Cow shouldn't be dirty.
Okay. So there is another technical question about what is the technical difference between A1 versus A2 milk. What it is, A1 and A2 milk?
A1 is drinking milk, and it goes to up to in Israel. We are allowed to go up to 400 somatic cell count, but this is very high. Usually in my dairy, we get a very low somatic cell count. We get to 160 and so on. But the grades of milk is drinking milk and cheese-producing milk. This is the two levels of milk. The aim of every dairy farmer is to create a grade A1 milk with low bacteria and low somatic cell count. Somatic cell count is very connected to the environment and the stress that the cow is in, and you're able to do it by doing the things in the right manner. And bacteria is how clean the machine and how clean the way you work in your farm.
Okay. So the last question that I see here that could be answered is it possible to get some recommendation on good fly repellents?
Of course, there is a possibility. Need to make a connection, Oded, maybe you can do it with suppliers of spraying materials for flies. And there are different names in different countries. I don't know, you should check with a local supplier of spraying materials. What are the right methods to use in your farms?
Okay, I see that all the time there is streaming of questions, and the question is: are you collecting 2 or 3 days of milking?
Because our dairy is quite big, we ship every day the milk to the processing plant. But we need to have 48 hours ability to storage the milk with in a 3 Celsius degrees.
Okay. There is a question here that is asking which type of cow produce good quality milk regardless how you feed them, and so it's a good joke. And as an entrepreneur, how many cows do you advise a person to start with in a farm? If you are, and this is myself, I can answer this. Start with the first cow, and then you see whether you are good in it, you would like to continue. And then if you don't have experience with cow, do not get inside.
I want to add to this. Getting to be a dairy farmer is a very serious business, and it takes a lot of investment, and it takes a lot of professionality. And I think a good dairy farmer is the one that always learn, because there is always to learn. I myself always learn new things and new methods. And you must understand that this is not a game of playing with a cow. This is an economic venture, and you don't want to gamble on your financial ability by doing things if you're not 100% committed to it.
Okay, first of all, there is a thank you note from Esther that thank you so much, Arnon, of this brilliant lecture. I have learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And there is Maurice Masinga. Is there any possibility of connecting with the farmers of your kind across culturally in Kenya or in Israel? And there is another question, another thank you. Thank you so much for the knowledge sharing. So,
well, about the question of connecting, I think you will be the best answer giver.
Yeah.
So this is up to you.
Yeah. If we're speaking about connecting opportunity to the farmer of Kenya, for example, you need a lot of infrastructure in order to do a dairy farm. and you should be connected especially to a plant that will process the milk. This is the first thing. Then you also have to have a lot of money in order to invest for 2 years, not having any money and having a lot of expenses, because from the moment there is a calf, a female calf, then only after 2 years of hard work, she's starting to give milk. And then you start to receiving the money. So it is an economical question. And as Arnon said, without a business plan, it is there is no use to get inside. And you have to come from a family, you have to come with the love of those cows. This is something very important. So I would like, first, maybe Arnon would like to say a few words before I'm finishing this meeting.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to share my knowledge with so many people around the world. And I think that if we can be of any help, and every one of you can get a connection through Oded and through Mashav, and I'm sure that there will be a way that we can share or help you with your way in your dairy business. But thank you again for joining us, and give us the possibility to share with you.
Oh, we hope you have enjoyed the lecture, and we thank, of course, Arnon Oshry for his very interesting, insightful, and fruitful, as you said, lecture. We appreciate your participation and hope to have you with us again in future lecture. We welcome you to watch all the recorded lecture, also this one, and to invite your friend and colleague to watch them also. We would be glad to cooperate with you in the future, and thank you also for your questions. And we as MATC, Mashav Agricultural Training Center, were encouraging you to invite your friend and colleague that have a professional or personal interest in the subject to join the upcoming webinar and lecture. So thank you all, and see you in next webinars.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.